Here at Last Minute English, we've helped hundreds of students score 140 on the Duolingo English Test, and they all had 4 habits in common. Want to know what they are? Let's find out. Hello, I'm Francis from Last Minute English. Today we're looking at the 4 habits that you need to have if you want to score 140 on the Duolingo English Test. Now we're going to be focused on the speaking sample because that's what many of our students say is the most difficult question. But you can use these habits for the other question types as well. The first habit that all top scorers have is using context clues. Now, it's really annoying and very difficult when you get into the test and you get a question and you don't know one of the words. Now, that happens to top scorers as well. But the difference is that they have good strategies to deal with that situation. Basically, they look at the words around the word that they don't know, and they use those words to make an educated guess about what their unknown word actually means. So let's look at a speaking sample question as an example. So you can see that we've got an underlined word. Let's read through the question and we'll think about that underlined word. So, people need to adapt their plans due to unexpected challenges. How do you adjust when circumstances change? Describe a situation in which you had to modify a goal or strategy to achieve a better outcome. Include details and examples in your response. So imagine that we don't know that word modify. What you could do is look at the words around it to get an idea of what it could mean. So we know it comes after have to, so it's some kind of verb, and then it's talking about something with goals, and the whole feeling of it is kind of related to changing. So we could have a guess that, okay, I think modify means to change something. And we'd be right. Modify means to change something to make it better. Now this works really well for speaking sample, for speak about the photo, things like that. It also works really well for those questions where you have a blank, like fill in the blanks and read and complete. So for example, this fill in the blank question, let's take a look and see if we can use context clues to help us get the right answer. So, the little girl rubbed her eyes and went up to bed. So we know that it's a missing word. It starts with SL, and we know how many letters there are, but what other clues can we get? So we can see that there's a verb here which is rubbed, and if we think about the grammar of the sentence, this word, this missing word, should be describing the way that this girl rubbed her eyes. So it's going to be an adverb. And we also know that adverbs usually end in ly. Not always, but usually. And we can think, okay, she's rubbing her eyes, she's going to bed, probably she's tired. So are there any adverbs that start with SL that are talking about being tired, going to bed? And we'd be able to find that the answer is not sleepy, that's the adjective, but sleepily. So the key here is to not panic. If you get a question and you don't know a word, look around that word that you don't know, see if you can make an educated guess, and then go for it. Now the second habit that all top scorers have is that they use the preparation time. So for example, on this speaking sample question, you have to speak for 3 minutes, but at first you get 30 seconds to have a think. And the important thing is to not just go, but instead actually make a plan for what you're going to talk about. And that plan should include 3 things. The first is content. So what story are you going to tell? The second is structure. How will you organize your answer? So the structure that we suggest for speaking sample is personal anecdote, telling a little story, and then opinion. You give your opinion about the question, and then another example to finish. And then finally, you think about vocabulary. That's the third thing that you should think about in your preparation time. What high-level vocabulary can you use to improve your answer? Try to think of maybe just 1 or 2 words and phrases that you can drop in. So you get 30 seconds of preparation time in speaking sample. But there are other questions as well where you get some preparation time. Speak about the photo, you get 20 seconds. Listen, then speak, you get 20 seconds to listen to the audio a few times. Read, then speak, you get 20 seconds to read the question and think about what you're going to say. And in interactive listening at the start, you get 20 seconds to read the situation, the scenario, and try to prepare yourself for what kind of things the conversation could include. So the second tip, using the preparation time, and then the third tip is that top scorers use planned structures. So we've already talked about this a little bit in point 2, but using a planned structure is super important. If you always organize your answer in the same way, you don't have to waste time feeling worried and nervous about the way that you're going to organize your answer when you get to the real test. And you can spend more time thinking about the content, what story will you tell, and the vocabulary, what high-level words do you know to include. So as we said before, a good structure for speaking sample would be a personal anecdote, story about yourself, an opinion, and an example. But we also have some great structures for different questions. For example, the write about the photo and also speak about the photo questions. We could use these 5 questions to ourselves to help us give a good answer. So we could say, what does the photo show? Who is doing what? Where is this happening? And when is it happening? And also, why is this action happening? So if you learn that structure, you remember those 5 questions and you practice using them, that is really going to help your organization. Also, it helps you speak longer, because if you just focus on like, okay, what can I see? Some photos are not too interesting, right? There's not enough to talk about. So thinking about when it's happening, where it's happening, and why it's happening can really help you to extend your answer. By the way, if you're finding this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe down here, because we've got loads more DET videos coming out all the time. The final habit that all top scorers have is that they maximize their answer length. Now, different speaking questions and writing questions as well have different time limits. For example, listen then speak, you've got 90 seconds to speak. Speaking sample, you've got 3 minutes. But whatever the length is, whichever question it is, the more you can talk, the better it's going to be. It's very hard to get the top scores if your answer is very short, because you've not given yourself enough time to give some complex vocabulary, some interesting grammar, to talk in a deeper way about the photo that you can see, or maybe about the opinion that you've been asked to give. So it's really important to use as much of the time as you can, as long as you're still answering the question. You can't just say any words like apple, banana, carrots, Denmark, England. You have to be actually answering the question. But as long as you can do that, the longer you can speak, the better it will be. And we've actually got 5 great expressions that you can learn for any speaking task to help you speak more, to extend your answer. So let's take a look at the 5 now. So actually, there's one more point I'd like to add. So you're coming to the end, you think, okay, I don't have much more to say, but there's still 30 seconds, and you can use this one. Actually, there's one more point I'd like to add, and you say whatever that point is. Or, there's something else that's just caught my eye, and this would be particularly in the photo questions. You go, oh, look at that little detail, and then you talk more. And it's the same for number 3, which is, now that I look more closely, I see that, and then you say some detail that you hadn't noticed before. So that's also great for the photo questions. And then a couple more which are more general. They could be for photo questions or for the more answering the questions, listen and speak, read then speak. So we could say, I can't wrap up my response without mentioning. So what that means is I can't finish without mentioning something else important. Or we could use this last one. As a final thought then, let me say that, and then usually we'll give some kind of overall opinion, some kind of last idea. So there we go. Those are the 4 habits that I've seen in all of our top scoring students. Now, I want to know, do you think we've missed any habits? Is there anything else that you think is really important to getting a high score in the DET? It doesn't matter if you have got a high score yet. If you haven't, that's fine. Just give me your idea of what you think might be another good habit. Let me know in the comments down here. If you found this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to get the best score possible the first time that you take the DET, you should check out our complete DET preparation course. It's got everything you need, so many different resources to help you score at least 120 or higher. The link to that is here under the video. I'm Francis from Last Minute English. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck in your DET. I'll see you next time.